call to order. I want to tell everyone already? Okay. The board does not write the zoning ordinance, but does have the authority to grant relief from where it... let me turn on the microphone, that works better. All right, let's start this again. The board does not write the zoning ordinance, but does have the authority to grant relief from it where practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship would result. The board will vote on each agenda item following a public hearing. Use variance requests a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variances. Non-use variance requests require a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant the variances. If you would like to request that the board table or adjourn the case due to the absence of a full board, you must inform the chairperson immediately after the public hearing. We have a full board tonight, so that's not the case. Petitioners shall do their best to limit presentations to 10 minutes, and each participant in the public hearing shall do their best to limit comments to 3 minutes. Thank you. So, roll call. We see everyone's here. Approval of the minutes for March 10th. Is there a motion for approval? Is there a second? Sukin supports. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. There's no old business that I know of, correct, Mr. Murphy?
Correct.
So we will move on to new business, case number 22-04-13, 316 North Alexander Avenue. Whenever you are ready, Mr. Murphy. Wait a second.
We'll go ahead and do a presentation, and then we'll hand it over to you, and then the board will have questions. You can stand there if you want. Sure, that's fine. So the subject property is located on North Alexander. It's north of 11 Mile Road, and as you can see from the aerial photograph, or the photograph on the screen in front of you, it contains a single-family home. It does have a detached garage. The west front facade of the house, it has a steep pitch shed roof with 2 small-scale gable dormers. And the existing second floor has a limited height clearance and floor area. So the petitioner proposes to remove this roof line and construct a reverse gable roof, which creates additional height for more second-story floor area. And I'm going to jump to their elevation to show you that. So you can see the rendering of the front facade after the improvements. Based on the lot width, the house must have no less than a 4-foot setback. And the site photograph will demonstrate that the house has a 3-foot setback from that south front, or rather the south side yard. And it also has a non-conforming 8.9-foot north side yard setback, and that's the driveway side. Together, they have both setbacks result in a non-conforming 11.9-foot combined side yard setbacks. The proposed second-story addition is in line with the existing exterior wall. Therefore, the proposed addition would maintain that non-conforming 3-foot setback. It would not gain compliance with the current minimum setback, again, 4 feet. So the petitioner is seeking a variance to expand the structure in a non-conforming manner and to waive 1 foot of the minimum required 4-foot setback. I'm going to jump to their site plan to illustrate. This is a survey of the existing condition, and again you'll see the 3-foot setback on the south side, and on the north side, the driveway side, 8.9 feet. That addition is in line with the existing footprint of the house, so it maintains that 11.9-foot non-conforming combined side yard setback. The combined side yard setback for a property of this size requires at least 12 feet. So they're seeking those variances. The rear yard addition that they're proposing does comply with the ordinance requirements. It does not necessitate a variance request. Only the area that's hatched rather that's shown in the dark shaded gray for the front, to the front of the home. That's the portion that requires a variance. The petitioner did an excellent job of depicting that on their drawings. And you'll see that there were 2 written comments that were distributed for your review at tonight's, at the table tonight for you. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Is there any questions for Mr. Murphy? All right, seeing none, the petitioner may come forward and state your name and your case.
I'm Jennifer Streamer.
My name is Joe Gunch.
And we're at 316 North Alexander. You want me to just describe what we're doing?
Yep.
So we're putting a front porch on the front of our house and changing the elevation, as you mentioned, to the reverse gable to create a 2-story front facade. And we think that it will, we worked with a local architect who was recommended to us because of her experience with keeping houses looking historical as she modifies them. That's primarily what she works on, is modifying older homes in and around Royal Oak. We worked together to come up with a plan that we thought was very in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. And by building directly on top of the existing structural wall, it will allow the house to stay symmetrical rather than needing to jog in the one side by 1 foot, which would also cause us to need to put in some support, which would, we would then lose the wet plaster on the interior of the house.
And the existing house was built in the 1930s, and so this is not anything that was, due to us. So.
Okay. Is there any questions for the petitioners? All right, seeing none, thank you. We'll open up to public comment and then talk about your variance afterwards. Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of this case for public comment? Going once? Going twice? All right. Nothing in this case. We'll bring it back to the board. Is there any discussion and/or motions? Ms. Zukin, I saw your hand up first.
I'll move to adopt the variances as requested.
Is there a second? Ms. George? Go ahead, Ms. Zukin.
First of all, I'd like to point out that this is across the street from the park, so it's a wide open area. Secondly, I think it complies with all the non-use variance criteria. The chapter's restrictions unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose. They just want to raise the roof, basically, so it's more practical, and they're staying within the existing parameters. They're not increasing the non-conforming use. The variance would do substantial justice to the applicant as well as to other property owners, and a lesser relaxation than that requested would give substantial relief to the owner of the property, would be more consistent with justice to the other property owners. Property owners have not objected to it. In fact, we've got some letters in support of it. The plight of the landowner is due to unique circumstances of the property, and that goes along with letter D, that the alleged hardship has not been created by any person presently having an interest in the property. They bought this house with the present footprint. It was a conforming use at the time. It's become a non-conforming use, and they didn't create the hardship. So I see no reason to deny it.
Okay. Anything to add, Ms. George?
No, other than the fact of the matter is that they're not changing the footprint that the house already exists in.
Okay. Other discussion? Anyone else? Mr.
The other positive thing to point out is the addition. You made that comply with the ordinance, so I appreciate that too. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, seeing that, we'll move to a vote. Please remember to raise your hand as you signify saying aye or nay. All in favor of granting the variance as request, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? All right, unanimous. It's passed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Move on to the next case, number 220414, 801 North Alexander Avenue. Whenever you are ready, Mr. Murphy.
So we stay on the same street, we just move a little further north.
Yep.
And this site is at the corner of North Alexander and Forest Avenue, and it contains a single-family home with a detached garage. And the petitioner is proposing to demolish all the structures and to construct a new two-story single-family dwelling with an attached garage that's accessed off of Forest. The proposed driveway measures 29 feet in width, and that's at the property line, so close to the sidewalk. The zoning ordinance allows for a maximum driveway width for residential properties of 25 feet. They are seeking a variance of 4 feet from that 25-foot maximum. And the driveway leads to a 751 square foot attached garage. Zoning ordinance allows for an accessory structure, in this case an attached garage, to be no more than 10% of the lot area and in no instance contain more than 800 square feet in floor area. While the proposed garage is less than 800 square feet in floor area, it results in 13.4% of the lot coverage. And again, the maximum is 10%. So they're seeking a waiver of 3.4%. And that equates to about 190 square feet from that proposed garage. The ordinance allows, for this size lot, the ordinance allows for all the structures on the site to cover no more than 1,800 square feet. And the petitioner's proposal results in a total lot coverage of 2,293 square feet, or roughly 40.9%. Again, the maximum is 1,800 square feet, so the petitioner is seeking a variance of 493 square feet to go above and beyond the maximum allowable. Zoning ordinance provisions allow for a single-family home to be no taller than 30 feet. And we measure that if there are multiple roof lines, which there are for this proposed dwelling. We measure the height at the midpoint, or the equal distance between the peak and the eave. So if there are multiple peaks, we measure to the highest midpoint. In this case, that highest midpoint is on the north elevation, and I'll hover over it on the screen. There's a small dormer on the north elevation, and at that point, the dwelling measures 32 feet. So they're seeking a variance to waive 2 feet of the maximal allowable height of 30 feet. And again, it's just to that dormer. This is a corner property, and due to the orientation of the house to the north on North Alexander, this property requires a front yard setback equal to that house. Due to the orientation of the property to the west, the property at 825, this property requires a setback along Forest of no less than 25 feet, the minimum required front yard setback. The petitioner's proposal measures 8.4 feet from south setback along Forest. And I'm going to refer to, I'll jump over to their survey. So I'm going to hover over the area which is Forest, and here's Alexander. Again, the property to the west at 825 Forest, it has a front yard setback of 83.2 feet. The zoning ordinance allows for a maximum front yard setback of 50. So when we determine what the setback is for this subject property, we do not utilize the existing front yard setback of the adjacent house at 825 Forest. We apply the minimum required front yard setback along Forest, which is 25 feet. And the petitioner, their proposal results in an 8.4 foot setback along Forest. So they're seeking a waiver of 0.6 feet from that minimum required setback along Forest. And if we zoom into the house, the survey illustrates the house to the north at 807 North Alexander. That house has a front yard setback of 35.1 feet. So anything that's constructed on this subject property at the corner needs to have an east front yard setback along North Alexander equivalent to the house to the north. Again, 35.1. And the petitioner is proposing a front yard setback along North Alexander of 30 feet. So they're seeking a variance of 5.1 feet from that minimum 35.1 foot setback. We did receive quite a few written comments, 10 written comments that are included in your online packet for your review. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have prior to the petitioner describing their project.
Okay. Is there any questions for Mr. Murphy? Mr. Collette?
A quick question. If the house were to slide back into the rear yard, would that create any rear yard setback issues? It's a detached garage, so that'd be counted as an accessory structure, correct?
You got a 35-foot setback.
Just out of curiosity, just raising the question.
I'm going to zoom in on their survey. It's got a lot going on the survey, but the red outline illustrates the proposal. And the proposal has an attached garage to the rear. You'll see in that the second story of the house drops down to a lower portion of the garage, and that differentiation is highlighted in this dashed outline. That dashed outline shows the closest point of living space to that rear lot line that you're referencing, so to the west. And it measures somewhere in the neighborhood of, and I can look it up on this on the notes that I had. Oh, here it is, 37.2 feet. So there's room to shift it back 2.2 feet.
Okay.
Not enough to gain compliance with that minimum required front yard setback on North Alexander, but there is some wiggle room.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Murphy? No? Seeing none? Yes. Okay. Petitioner present, you may come forward and present your case.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn Rebelli Droppers.
Hi, and I'm Josh Droppers. First, I want to say thanks to Joseph Murphy and his team for walking myself and Jocelyn through this process and for the guidance and graciously answering probably too many questions from us. Thank you to the zoning board for your time and consideration for us to present tonight about our dream home here in Royal Oak. To back up a bit, we've lived here for the last 10 years and on actually North Alexander, 900 North Alexander, just 5 houses up the block for the last 7 years. We've gotten to know the neighborhood very well. We've gotten to know most of the neighbors, and we are absolutely in love with our small community, friends, and relationships we've built with the other young families on our block. Over the past few years, my wife and I have expressed the desire to stay as close as possible to where we are today with our friends and neighbors, as previously mentioned. But our current bungalow would not suit our growing family going forward. The need for additional space has been drastically accelerated as my wife and I are expecting our first child in September. The opportunity to build our dream home and to raise our family so close to our current friends, family, and neighbors is a rare opportunity and one that we're grateful for. To that end, we do realize the property's small and non-conforming features present issues with how growing families live their lives today. We know what specific things, and we also know what specific things will keep us in that house for many, many years. I'd like to walk through some of the variances that Joseph laid out earlier and explain some of our hardships. Please feel free to stop me at any point, ask any questions or comments that might come up. So with variance A, the 16.6 feet south setback along Forest, obviously we are requesting this variance due to the 25-foot setback would make building on a lot impractical. The 25-foot setback plus the additional 4-foot setback on the north property would result in a house at 15 feet or less in width, right? So To note, we are also proposing to be set back further, so at 8.4 feet versus the current structure that was there at 7.3 feet. So we are moving further away from the variance there. Variance B, waiving 5 feet of the required 35-foot east setback along Alexander. We are requesting this variance to make better use of the small lot and to bring the front of the house in line from an architectural perspective with the majority of the houses to the north, the house to the south, the house to the east. Obviously, this will affect 807 North Alexander, our neighbor to the north. Sharon, who was nice enough to write us a letter after a couple of different conversations with her, a letter of support that was included in the package. Variance D, the 3.4% maximum garage coverage, along with variance F, the 4-foot allowable driveway width, trying to cover these two together as they both pertain basically to the ancillary structure of the garage. So we are requesting these two variances to build a garage that suits the needs of a modern day multi-car soon enough to be filled with strollers, toys, bikes, and before we blink, additional drivers. Our hardship pertains to the width of the lot and the inability to ever park cars in said driveway. The driveway will only be 10 feet long. I don't know of any cars that are only 10 feet long. The cars will either have to be all the way in the garage or on the street. Parking our cars on the street lends to a couple other issues, especially on the east side of the property on Alexander Avenue, as it's right in front of the stop sign and also a bit of a busier street. Additionally, on the south side, there is on Forest Avenue on the south side of the property, there's additional hardships with a fire hydrant that will eat into parking spaces on the east side of the lot. Lastly, as we all know, there are snow emergencies, and when snow emergencies occur, you do have to get your cars off the street. Variance E, waiving 493 square feet of the maximum lot coverage. The defined hardship here is the overall non-conforming size of the lot, requesting this variance based on the additional square footage as just described in variance D. The majority of the remaining square footage overage is due to the front porch being included in the coverage calculation, representing 46% of the overall overage. We've considered and gone back and forth and could consider not covering the front porch, and I think at that point, Joseph, if I'm correct, that would not be covered in your covered amount, the square footage.
I can look that up.
Yeah, so I think that's as we understand it. However, this would present aesthetics issues as having a slab of concrete out there or whatever it may be and not having it covered and not being form and function from an architectural perspective to the other houses in the neighborhood. Lastly, variance C, waiving 2 feet of the maximum height. This is one that we've talked about as well, and if it would please the board, we'd be more than happy to go back and redraw that so that we are compliant there, and I'd like to informally here request that we withdraw that variance request. I want to address a couple of letters from our community and some outside of our community that were included in the packet and some other outside forums. First, what was described as the deforestation and removal of all the trees from the property. There were 3 beautiful oak trees on the property. One of those 3 trees was taken down a number of weeks ago. The tree was so close to the current structure that it's actually starting to deteriorate the structural integrity of the house. The tree had to come down no matter whether we were going to keep the house or do a new build. My wife and I are bummed out about the tree having to come down because it was a beautiful and royal oak. We made a decision to have the tree cut and milled so that we can use the lumber for a dining room table and throughout other places in the house so we can pay homage to the beautiful oak that was there. Secondly, around water runoff, we are planning on implementing a rainwater collection system to strategically try to collect said rainwater and distribute it during dry periods of the year. Lastly, I wanted to address some comments that have been said about my wife and I that we are greedy builders and flippers. I hope I've made it clear that that couldn't be further from the truth. We are longstanding residents of the neighborhood who wish to remain here. And obviously with the outrageous and ridiculous cost to build today, we're definitely not in this for the money. Once again, I appreciate the time. Joseph, thanks again. Take any questions now or anything that I might have missed.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioners? Mr. Gavin?
Just to confirm, did I hear that you're withdrawing the 2 foot? So that would be, which item is that?
Letter C, yes,
Letter
that
C,
is
so
correct.
you're withdrawing that one?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
I just wanted to make sure I heard that correctly. All right. And I think, oh, I'm sorry, I have a second question.
Go ahead. You got it.
I believe you might have heard Mr. Klatt ask about shifting the house back. Is that something you considered so that you could kind of reduce that front yard setback along Alexander Avenue in order to, because I guess the standpoint that we come from is when there's a demolition and a new build, we really like to try and minimize the number of variances. Obviously, with this being a corner lot, like the setback along Forest Avenue, that's just going to make it like impossible unless there's a variance there. But you know, some of the other ones that we can reduce, we would like to where we can. So is that something you've considered, and what other things have you looked at to, like you also mentioned, you know, removing the roof from, or the covering for the porch. What have you also considered there?
Yeah, I think if it's the board's direction, say, hey, move it back X feet, right? It's something we would be happy to discuss, without having a number, right? But somewhere between 0 and 5, right? I think that's definitely something we can further discuss. We haven't come up with a number between us, but if that number is 3, if that number is 5, or 3 or 4, I guess 5 would be a deny. But
I guess the one caveat to that I would like to say is that I don't like to ask people to redesign on the fly, and you always want to talk, like you don't have your architect here, so you may want to talk to somebody if that's something you want to do. I was just wondering if you considered it and if that was something you were open to. So.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously we don't have our architect here, but I feel comfortable enough with some of those conversations.
Okay.
Comments, questions, or questions for the petitioner? Yes, Ms. Grant.
I guess building on that, would you consider having like a 2.5 car garage as opposed to a 3 car to get rid of the maximum allowable lot coverage variance for an accessory structure?
Yeah, so if the board saw that was needed to reduce that, and take, say, 8 feet out of that garage to reduce kind of one stall, if you will, we would be amenable to that, and that's something we could deal with. Obviously, it puts us in a bind at some level too, but if that's where we're going to end up, that's where we're going to end up.
Mr. Clay.
Those are all great points, and along those lines, if you did reduce the garage, you would then reduce the driveway width, it would reduce the lot coverage, reduce the accessory structure coverage. So like Mr. Gavin's point, trying to reduce the amount of variance requests, that'd be helpful. Because item A, I have no issue with that. You're right, that's almost unbuildable at that point. I was actually okay with item C because it's just the dormer. Your overall roof height matches that little dormer is the one that was throwing it up.
that was going to add on an extra.
Yeah. So A and C I was fine with. It's just some of those excesses. So if we can cut back a bit, that would be helpful.
Other questions?
No, actually, I'm good. Yeah.
Anyone else? All right, the question I would have is, think about what comments we've just asked you, because I'm going to probably say after public comment, ask if you want us to go forward or delay until next month, because there's some ideas you could come back with and don't want necessarily to force it down you.
Yeah, so my question is, will I have a chance to come back up and talk after that, or how does that work? Because we've loosely talked about things, and if we're going to move forward one direction or another, that's,
yeah,
I feel like I'm Shark Tank a little bit.
Usually if we delayed a month, adjourn it for a month, you can come back and present what changes you've made, and then we do the discussion again,
Okay.
and then vote on it.
To the effect of making deals on the fly? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Moore?
No, not a question for them, but Mr. Murphy, if they are denied today, they would have to wait a year, correct? To come back
for
with-
the exact same variance
Okay.
request, yes.
So that was a point I was going to make as well, is that if you're willing to do some changes and meet with your architect, that's something that you might want to consider.
Okay, so say we cut as was suggested, we cut let's say 8 feet times 24 and a half feet. I believe that's on 190 something, 196.
Yes.
So that gets us out of the overage on the garage, and we will reduce the driveway footprint. So we'll cut those two out.
All right.
Right, so that also obviously drastically reduces E, eliminates D and F. So we would still be talking about A, B, and partially E.
We can run some of those numbers while we're doing public comment. And then I think it'd be appropriate for you to come back and have conversation again after public comment.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, public comment, please come up one at a time and state your name. And remember, you have 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Abby Hoot. I'm representing the people of Royal Oak, and I do have a petition online regarding the variances that are being requested with 70 signatures. We, the people, wish that the city, which I appreciate the conversation we've already heard, reflect on why the zoning codes are here for homes, and that they were in fact designed to protect the quality of life in Royal Oak neighborhoods by defining limitations on sizes of home in proportion to the lots in which they're built upon, to ensure green space safety on the property that we're talking about. Audrey, the neighbor to the west, is concerned because her driveway, her vision will be blocked by the structure. So there are some safety concerns, also protecting the green areas, the grass, the trees. I understand the oak was very close to the house. There was also a large pine removed that was closer to the sidewalk. So a lot of trees have been lost in the last few years in Royal Oak. I've been there 22 years on Forest Avenue, and this site in conversation right now is just a couple doors down from my home. I just wanted to also state that the city previously had stated in minutes this year its overall goal to prevent flooding by decreasing the amount of impervious surfaces and creating and preserving more green space when possible to lessen the amount of surface water and runoff. And that this is also going back to the quality of life of people living in Royal Oak. So we're asking that the building codes be looked at, why they're there in the first place, and to be considered about the community that's been there, existing, and the quality of life of why we moved there. Why I moved to Forest Avenue was for the trees. Jamie, who lived at 801 North Alexander, loved her garden and the trees. So everything's already been demolished and taken out. We, the people, really ask that these variances be denied. I understand there's already some discussion about compromise, and I appreciate that as well, to look at it, what other solutions we can have where it's not going to affect everybody else in the area detrimentally. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. I'm Sharon Kirchner, and I live at 801 North Alexander, which would be the next door neighbor. Excuse me. You do have a letter of approval for me in your packet, and unfortunately, I'm here to rescind that letter. I was given to understand, perhaps misunderstood, that the front of the house would not significantly be closer to Alexander than my house. And I would really, really think to retain the integrity of the neighborhood and to allow for green space, which we have very small front yards as it is now, that the line of the front of all the houses on that block continue to be in that same distance. I'm also concerned about the runoff issue. I was glad to hear the partial solution to that problem. My concern isn't so much collecting the water, the groundwater to use, when we have dry summers, as it is when we have so much rain that my backyard begins to start flooding. And I'm concerned that we already, with that situation, and if we also have less green to soak up that rainwater, I'll have a much bigger flooding problem. And I was not aware of the other 4 waiver requests, so I don't really know the issue well enough to intelligently comment on them. And I do appreciate that the adopters are willing to look at the issue and make changes that will work with the neighborhood. I think we would all be very pleased to have them as neighbors. They're a nice couple, and I think we can work this out together. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
How are you? I'm Josh Thompson. This is Becky Thompson. We live directly across the street from Josh and Jocelyn as of right now. We think that they're amazing neighbors. They keep their property in good shape. They take care of everything. I never have any issues with them. We've become friends with them. They're very good people. They're people that we would appreciate staying in the neighborhood. And now they're moving just a few houses down. I would like them to stay. We've also been in their shoes 3 years ago, sitting here trying to get variances because the corner lots that we live in don't allow for us to build, really. I mean, if you go by the standards, you can't build on the lot. I mean, not a feasible home anyways. I can appreciate some of the things that the naysayers or whatever you want to call it say, with the runoff and stuff. But if you deny this, who's to say that they're going to sell the property, go somewhere else, and then you're just going to have some builder come in who doesn't care about anybody and is just going to build a monstrosity and have somebody else come in. Who knows what kind of neighbors you're going to have. They're people we want to keep around. I would ask that you approve of the variances that are being discussed today because, this is their dream home. They got a growing family. These are the type of people we want to keep in the neighborhood. Keeping these smaller homes, although, the trees and everything, you just can't, with the growing families that we have today, you just can't keep these homes the way they are without some type of additions or new construction. I just don't know where their hands are kind of tied right now if they want to have a home of their dreams on a corner lot like that. They're going to need to have some of these variances approved. So.
Yep.
So in addition, I do have a letter from the neighbors that would be directly to the south of them, the 727 Alexander. They couldn't make it today, but they did give me a letter. Would you like me to read it or give it to you?
You could just hand it to us and we'll look at it.
Okay, sweet.
Thank you. Anything else?
I think that is it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Hi there, I'm Michelle Halloran. I live at 815 North Alexander, so just a few houses to the north of where they are. So I've known them for years, just living on the block. I've lived there for 25 plus years. So I've seen lots of tear downs in the neighborhood, new houses on both sides of me. I think it's really doing good things for the neighborhood. And with their compromises, I think it'd be a good way to move forward to have good people stay in the neighborhood.
My name is Abhinav. I live on 915 North Alexander, so I'm a little bit closer to the Gardenia side. And I guess I'd love to echo what Josh and Becky Thompson said, as well as Michelle. But also, I would like to add in, I'm a dad. For us, it's like, we threw a block party very recently. It was amazing to get everyone together and to actually build a community and build people and to actually have that sort of community structure that I felt we really haven't had before. And Michelle, you can kind of comment on that, but Jocelyn and Josh have really been kind of fundamental in bringing the community together like that. And to the idea that they're going to be having a child very soon, to us, it's, it builds our communities up. And, to have them here is something that we really long for. And right now we have about 8 to 9 families with children that are in the area. And it would be really remiss, I think, to, prevent Josh and Jocelyn from getting these variances kind of taken care of. So we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak up?
Hi, I'm Diana. I guess, as far as the hardships for them, I sort of feel like they bought the property knowing the size with the hydrant and all those things. And as Abby said, there's zoning laws for a reason. And to change it this much, I think it's too much. It did have a house on it, and it seems like an addition, it's gone now, but sorry, I'm not good at public speaking, but it seems extreme what they're doing, and I'm a little confused now how they're altering it. It's hard to even respond to it now, not knowing exactly what changes they're proposing. I would like to know what that is. It seems like it should be clearer before a vote is done. That's all. I grew up in Royal Oak, so 63 years. Not that I'd like to say that, but, I really appreciate the city. I like that people are fixing up homes and building homes, but this seems like it takes up the whole footprint of the property. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else to speak on this case?
Hello, how are you? My name's Deborah. I'm at 731 Forest. I've lived here for 45 years. I raised 2 children in a story and a half, 1 bathroom. So it can be done. I appreciate their willingness to do revisions. Actually, after Diana's question of exactly where we're standing, I might even be in for it, but I don't understand if they knew ahead of time, some of these things. Fire hydrant's been there for quite a long time, and I do understand the off-site parking or parking on the street is a pain in the neck, which is another part of the problem because it's such an active street for turning left specifically that, any way to have it not be so blocked of view would be helpful to the whole community. But again, I appreciate their willingness to work with you guys and work with us. They seem to be my children's age, and I understand the need for it. Everybody's got to have their own room. Because I have 4 grandkids, and they all have their own room. And it's probably because she got stuck with the smallest room at the house. But I just want it to be said. I agree with everything that Abby said as far as the trees. I had to have a tree taken down because of the sidewalk repair. Cut the roots, and it blew over, which was a 45-year-old tree. So if they could maybe replace one of the trees for appeasement, it would be helpful. And also, additionally, maybe if, when they move it back, they could put an outside park, I mean, I don't know if you need to approve it, an outside parking pad, if they're going to shrink down their garage, because I only have a 2 1/4 garage, and I always was able to fit my bikes and strollers and stuff, plus my husband had a small workshop for minor repairs of his business. So it can be done, and I appreciate their hardship, but from my point of view, they probably should have planned a little bit differently. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for this case?
Hi, my name is Noah Habito. I actually live down a couple of houses down on Forest. And so I really, I saw the whole demolition of the house. I'm not opposing to any sort of new construction because I actually bought a house that's a new construction a few years ago down the street. One of my main concerns is that it wasn't shown in the pictures, but there's these major power lines. And I understand this is like a 3-story home. And being so close to the sidewalk, they're essentially going to be, there's a power line that I don't think it can even move because it's like a main artery. So in addition to what Abby has already said, I feel like, that needs to be considered. I was looking at buying a house similar to that where it's in a corner. And one of the reasons why I didn't buy it is because these power lines, it could be a safety issue. So I just want to make sure that you guys are also aware of that. It wasn't shown in the pictures, but if you actually go there and you see all these major power lines, it's like that could be a safety issue. I mean, I wouldn't want to live in a house where, you can open your window and the power lines are right there. So I think it's just something that maybe if it's something that they overlooked or, something to consider that, that is an issue. And also, being in a city like Royal Oak, I used to live from Chicago, so I'm used to like really, being out here, moving here 4 years ago, everything's so open space. So it's amazing, it's different. Chicago has a different kind of structure. They have different ordinances, right? They allow for you to be able to take off all your space. But that's just how they did it there. But here, it's, it's a different kind of community. So it would be great to continue, to keep that sort of structure. And I feel like having that really tall house, especially at a corner, it's like a sore thumb. Like, I feel like, we need to just like be conscious about the area and how it fits in the neighborhood and also consider safety. So that's all I just wanted to add, just to make sure that, we're considering all these other things. I'm sure you guys are probably thinking about that, but just wanted to make sure that's, that's being brought up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Is there anyone else to speak on this case who hasn't spoken yet? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment and ask the petitioners to come back up to reflect upon what thought about delaying or going forward. So the proposals you were talking about earlier about to compromises, did you want to just go forward with that right now, or do you want to hold off, talk to your architect, come back next month and we find?
No, time is of the essence.
Okay.
Let's
All right, so let's get this straight, just so that we make sure.
Yeah.
Your plan is to remove 8 foot off the garage. So that would reduce the square footage to, Mr. Murphy, you calculated?
Yes, that's 196 square feet, so that would eliminate the request for variance D.
Right. And take 196 off the 493, correct?
And the board would be considering, as it reads now, variance E is to waive 493 square feet of the maximum allowable total lot coverage of 1,800 square feet. And by removing 196 square feet from the garage, that would modify variance request E to now read waive 297 square feet of the maximum allowable lot coverage of 1,800 square feet.
It would also remove the 4 feet from the maximum allowed driveway?
Wouldn't necessarily. You would have to consent to the board that by making your garage smaller, I'm assuming a bay, essentially a bay, that you would narrow your driveway as well. And if you were willing to do that to the point of it being no more than 25 feet wide, then that would eliminate variance request F.
Yeah, for this ability to limit our total number of variance requests, we will be amenable to doing that as well to eliminate that additional 4 foot requested.
And I'm going to bring up the survey which shows that so that everybody's clear of what the current proposal depiction is and what would be resulting based on the willingness to modify your design. So the image on the screen highlights the driveway width at the property line, and that measures 29 feet in width. And if your proposal is to narrow the garage by 8 feet by its depth, then you would not have that additional overhead door to drive into, and you would then narrow your driveway width as well.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. So, it would move to the east, I suppose.
So that would leave you with variance request A as listed, variance request B as listed. You stated that you were willing to withdraw variance request C, which relates to the maximum height. By your willingness to reduce the garage by 196 square feet, you would no longer need variance request D, so that would be in essence withdrawn. And variance request F would read to waive 297 square feet instead of 493 square feet of the maximum allowable lot coverage of 1,800 square feet, and you would be willing to withdraw variance request F, which relates to the maximum driveway width.
Correct. Just to make sure we appease as much as possible, for variance B, how much, and this is once again cutting something on the fly here, if we do remove 8 feet, could we, I guess, essentially only remove 3 feet to the west, right? So the front moves to the west 5 feet, the rear moves to the east 3 feet, essentially eliminating 8 feet. Would that put us at odds with any other ordinances or any other variances?
Your second floor currently measures, as proposed, measures 37.2 feet from the rear property line. And it needs to be no less than 35 as shown in that dashed line right there. So if the whole house was pushed 5 feet, you would be within that rear yard setback and necessitate a new variance request.
Gotcha. So if we're cutting everything else up here at this point in time, can we move it back 2 feet, right? So we get up to that back end of it. If this is something that is important to the board, we're more than happy to shift it to make everyone as happy as possible.
So then your variance B would be, instead of waive 5.1 feet,
3.1.
It would be 3.1 feet.
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
Just double checking that math. That's 37.2 on the north end of the property, but at the south end, it's 36.9 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a 0.3 difference. So we need to factor that in.
Sorry.
Otherwise, we'll.
Yeah.
Yep, sorry.
We don't want to ding you when we don't need anything done.
Sharp eyes.
Gold star for you, Mr. Gavin. And then if, okay.
Maybe there's some comments and questions from this side.
Yep. And Ms. George.
Mr. Murphy, I don't know if you know this, but how many variances have been granted on that block? Because when I look at the street, 819, 811, 918, and 806 Alexander all look like very new construction projects that are definitely covering more of the lot than the older homes.
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay, I didn't expect you to. I just wonder if you happen to.
So sometimes you remember cases, and unfortunately I don't remember any of those. They may very well have had variances, but I don't recall.
It's a big ask. Thank you.
Ms. Zukin.
So, Mr. Murphy or the homeowner, the house that was there before it was torn down was also just 8 feet from the lot line?
It's
7.6.
less than that,
7.6.
7.3.
Oh,
7.3.
Yeah, 7.3 at the worst case scenario. Yep.
They're making it better.
Yep.
Let's see. So taking 1'9" from the 5.1, that would make it 3.2 that they would be requesting.
For B?
For B, correct. All right. Any other questions before we bring it to the side of the board?
Excuse me. Could you clarify waiver B, exactly what it means for how far the setback would be from the east?
That's not something that's been motioned by the board at this point. I think if it is, then we'd be happy to explain that to everybody very, very clearly, and we'll make sure everybody understands that very clearly. But I'd rather wait if the board and see if the board would make a motion to that effect.
Okay, my question, I guess, was going to whether the people who previously objected, if they'd have an opportunity to say if, how they feel about these revisions.
We wouldn't provide new notice. If this item gets postponed to next month and the variance requests remain the same or are reduced or eliminated, we wouldn't provide a new notice. We would only provide a new notice if there were new variance requests.
But tonight, would they have that opportunity?
And that's not something that the board's ever done
before.
to my knowledge.
So if they were to eliminate B and move it back, essentially taking out that 5.1, that creates another variance request that would have to cause them to come back, right? It's not
For
something
a
they could do.
brand new variance request. Yes.
But if it was reduced to...
If it was reduced or
Yeah, because I'm just thinking
or
it's...
denied.
Or denied.
Or denied.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because I'm just thinking, 825 is set back so far that a rear yard variance would probably not be as big of a deal to them as clearly the next door neighbor at 807 who's affected by the front yard and has spoke out. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions before we let the petitioner sit down and discuss over here?
So just to make sure we're all squared away, so the variance request for the front or the Alexander fronting side, and I apologize, I'm going to use rough numbers here, 3 feet, right, in the front.
3.2, yep.
Yep.
Okay.
In the past, the board has...
Further in front, from where you are, 3 feet closer to Alexander.
Instead of 5.
Yeah.
Instead of, well, I don't know what the house is at. Yes, well, instead of 5 other feet closer. Correct. So 3 feet closer. Okay.
In the past, the board has taken each variance request as opposed to lumping them all together into one motion. So there seems to be a lot of confusion. I suggest that maybe if you see any low-hanging fruit that anybody wants to take a motion and just go down the pecking order with all of them. And as the board makes a motion and support on individual requests or collective packaging them up, I think it's best to reiterate them, express them to you, make sure you're clear on what the board is voting on and the public is as well.
Mr. Moore, question or?
Yes, I have a motion to grant...
Oh, wait a second. Any other questions before we move on? All right.
Okay.
Go on.
A motion to grant A, waiving 16.6 feet of the minimum required 25-foot south setback along Forest Avenue.
Is there a second? Mr. Klatt seconds. So, go ahead, Mr. Moore.
Sure. That's one that's clearly, they wouldn't be able to build much of anything there without it. So I see that it does meet all of the non-use variance criteria.
Thank you. Mr. Klatt?
I think practical difficulty exists as it's unbuildable at that point, and they're making the condition a bit better.
Any other comments?
Let's, before the vote, let's make sure everybody here and
Yep.
that side of the table and watching at home and
Yep.
wherever they may be understands. So it's the original variance request as listed, and I'm going to zoom in on it. And it's to allow the house, the proposed house, to be 8.4 feet from the south property line, which is along Forest Avenue. So that, just as proposed, as requested. And you're comfortable with that as well?
Yes.
Okay. Comments? Additional comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Oh, Mrs. Good snuck in there. Yes.
I was just trying to figure out this new site plan. So they're building the north side within 4 feet of the property line, which is allowable.
Correct.
But, so I guess I can't agree then that it's necessary to waive 16.6 feet on the south side because they're widening the house as it is, and they could move it back a little, and since the garage is being attached, it makes it look all the much closer to the road. So I don't know that I'm comfortable with that.
Other comments? Well, my comment is I don't have an issue with granting this. The previous house was actually needed even a larger setback granted than this if there was the case. So they're making it a little bit better than as it is. They're not going against any of the setbacks for the north side, so that's not into the account of this variance request on this one at all. So by that default, I don't have an issue with that. All right. Seeing no one, Mr. Gavin.
I'm just raising this as a concern. The property lines don't look exactly parallel here, and I'm a little worried that by shifting the house back as the 1.9 feet, it might throw off that the 16.6. That's just a concern I have.
Mm-hmm.
I am in favor of this, but I'm worried what will happen if we vote on this and we discover that it's wrong.
Well, we can't agree.
They would have to
Okay.
modify it to comply with what you gave them the variance for.
Yep.
Okay.
They feel comfortable accomplishing that?
All right.
I mean, it looks like the house they propose is parallel, though. The house
Yeah, but
wasn't.
if you want to
before.
maintain the 4-foot setback up here, but anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Gavin. Any other comments? All right, we'll move to vote. All those in favor, signify by saying aye and raise your hands. Aye. Opposed? All right, that variance passes no problem. All right, is there another variance someone would like to propose on? Mr. Moore, since you started off the things, do you want to continue?
Oh, wow, that's a lot of pressure on me now.
I'll bring them up on the screen.
Thank you. Okay, so the driveway one is gone.
Yep.
Let's make sure.
Correct.
Right.
Withdrawn.
Okay.
And that's-
So I'm just
that's
trying to see what's left. So
Variance request F.
So yeah, D and F have both been essentially withdrawn. No,
And
excuse
C.
me, C, D, and F have essentially been withdrawn.
okay, so now we have just B
And E.
and E. And B is now 3.2?
And E
That-
is
yeah.
297.
Go with E. So let's go with E first.
Okay. All right. I will make a motion to grant variance request E, waiving 297 square feet of the maximum allowable total lot coverage of 1,800 square feet. And again, with the non-use variance criteria, I believe that that's been met.
Is there a second, Mr. Clapp?
No, let's go ahead and explain.
Please go ahead. Go.
Do you want to make that?
Yeah, sure.
So your request to withdraw D and to make the garage smaller by 196 square feet, that modifies variance request E, which was just set forth as a motion, and your original variance request for E was to waive 493 square feet by suggesting that, stating that you will reduce the garage by 196 square feet. Mr. Moore has modified the variance request F to approve 297 square feet of the maximum allowable 1,800 square feet.
Correct.
So that reduces the footprint of the house and covers less of the property. Correct. Still goes above and beyond the maximum, but it's less than the original variance request.
Mr. Moore?
No, I have nothing further.
Mr. Clint?
No, as I stated earlier, I was concerned with the sheer number of variances and then the overall lot coverage increase. I appreciate your ability on the fly to make adjustments, and I think it's for the better, for the lot.
Ms. Robinson, I think I saw
No,
your
I'm
hand. Okay. Anyone have their hand up? Mr. Reddy?
I have an issue with this one just regarding section B of our requirements, that a lesser relaxation would not give relief, and regarding substantial justice to the neighbors. Just because this was done on the fly right now, I'm not sure that a lesser relief wouldn't do that, and the neighbors aren't able to give a comment about this, so I won't be able to support.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? I think I'll throw in my 2 cents. I think the practical difficulty of the 297 that's left, although it sounds like a lot, if you remember Mr. Murphy said because the porch is covered, that square footage gets thrown into the footprint. So if you removed the covering on that porch, which would make the house not look as nice, you'd be removing 210 feet. And then the same thing with the back porch, which is also covered, which is about 48 feet. So you'd be removing another 50 feet. So now you'd be down to 270 minus 297, about a 30-foot difference. So to squabble over 30 feet, that seems sort of taking 1 foot out of something or the whole thing. It's sort of not a whole lot to do that. So I don't have an issue with the practical difficulty of them being dinged for the covered porches to try and make the house look better and yet not get affected by the overall footprint coverage that the ordinance is calling for. So because of that, I will be in support of this motion. Any other comments? Mr. Conant?
So that's a great point too, because we encourage, I think front porches are always welcome. We encourage pedestrian walkable streets. So I think that's a good addition. Great point, Anthony.
Yeah, I agree that front porches are not practical if they aren't covered, but it does make the house larger, and they could reduce the size of the house to meet the ordinance because they've got a blank slate. So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay.
And I was going to echo that comments, just more with respect to the covered patios that we've been seeing more of lately, and how we look favorably on those. I don't think we should treat covered porches any differently than covered patios. So,
any other comments? All right. Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye. Okay. Opposed? Opposed?
Oh, sorry, no.
That's all right. Opposed?
Nay.
All right.
Motion carries.
Motion carries 7-2 on variance E for 297 square feet. Mr. Moore?
Yeah, I'm
Trifecta?
gonna try something a little different here, and I'm happy to make a motion if necessary, but I would like to see if Ms. Kirshner, if I would like to have her comment on that, because she had a comment with their proposed revisions to B, and I.
So you have a question for one of the people in the audience? Okay.
Do I need to make a motion to do that?
You can.
May I just say that we're comfortable with the 3.1 or 3.2 feet.
3.2.
To shift it if we would. We're more than comfortable with that.
Okay. Ms. Kirchner,
I'm comfortable with that too, more or less. I don't want to mess up your dream house, but, and I'm sure that we can work together if the flooding issue becomes a problem because of the runoff. So we'll be okay.
all right, thank you. Mr. Moore? Is that adequate enough for?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make sure
Yep,
that,
no problem.
because she had rescinded her letter and then, so, okay. Then I will make a motion to grant B, waiving 3.2, is it? No,
Yep.
3.2 feet of the minimum required 35.1 foot setback along North Alexander Avenue.
All right. Is there a second?
Might as well keep it
I was going to
consistent.
say, want to keep that trifecta going there, Mr. Platt? Mr. Moore?
I again, I'm going back to the requirements of the non-use variances. If they don't have one here in the front, they're going to have one in the back. The property is unique, and I believe that they meet the requirements.
All right, Mr. Eclipse?
Nothing else to add.
All right, other comments? Mr. Reddy?
Well, I'm going to be opposed to this motion on similar grounds as the last one. They were able to just lob off 2 feet of the requested variance while we were sitting here. Who knows if it could have been more? Who knows if other neighbors might have had a comment? So I'll just be opposed for that reason.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? This one I'm a little bit more torn on because, we've already come down a lot. Granted, if you go back to what the original variance or the original setback on that house before it was torn down is 34.7, so that's another half a foot. So that would put it down to under 3 feet if you considered where that line was to where the new line would be. So then it turns into, okay, it doesn't make sense that anywhere you lob off 3 feet. One could argue if you lobbed off 3 feet, you'd lose the usage of one of the bedrooms on the upstairs, making it not as livable. So, and without them going back to their architect on this one sort of, I'm wobbly a little bit on, but I could be understandable either way. So if anyone else has any comments. All right, seeing none, then we will move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, nays? Nay?
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So just so you're clear, that grants you 3'2" of the front yard setback. Okay. All right, we will move on to the next case. 220415 for 2105 Northwood Boulevard, whenever you are ready, Mr. Murphy.
Okay. Just one variance request. So
Yeah.
no need to slice this one up.
You're not going to make me look
All right, everybody heard that?
Okay.
This property is located on Northwood Boulevard near Woodward Avenue, and it contains a two-story single-family home. It did previously contain about a 500 square foot detached garage to the rear, and the aerial photograph on the screen in front of you will show that pad for the previous garage remains, and that garage was demolished in 2018. The petitioner proposes to construct a new garage in the same approximate location, but the garage that's being proposed is larger in size. It measures 30 by 24, which results in 720 square feet. Zoning ordinance does allow for an accessory structure, in this case the detached garage, to be no bigger than 800, in no instance larger than 800 square feet in floor area, and not to cover more than 10% of the lot. While at 720 square feet, it certainly is less than the maximum allowable 800 square feet, but it covers 10.4% of the lot. So the petitioner is seeking a variance of 0.4%, which equates to 26 square feet. of the maximum allowable. And we did receive one written comment with regard to this request. I'll note that the petitioner did indicate that they're unfortunately able to attend tonight's meeting. They're out of town, and they do have a representative here to answer any questions that you might have.
Good. I always feel bad
Yes.
doing cases that doesn't have someone to present. Questions for Mr. Murphy? I do have a quick one for you because I thought I saw it, but maybe I didn't. What was the lot size currently?
Lot size. You know, I don't have that listed in the report. I do have that on a spreadsheet, but this computer does not have Microsoft Excel.
All right.
I cannot get to it.
The square footage of the lot. Are you the petitioner?
He's the representative.
Yep. Yeah, oh, come on forward. We'll be speaking to you shortly anyway. Yeah, if you have that, you can let us know. Any other questions for Mr. Murphy while he looks that up? Mr. Gavin?
I was just saying because 10% is 694 square feet. Wouldn't it stand to reason then that it would be 6,000?
That's what I was saying.
It's late and we're confused, and you are for a reason.
Second gold star.
I got two math ones tonight. All right.
Do without you.
Impressive. You're a mathematist.
Bravo. Bravo.
That engineering degree came in handy, I guess.
Any other questions for Mr. Murphy? All right.
Or Mr. Gavin.
All right. Seeing none, the petitioner, please, or in this case, the representative of the petitioner, please state your name and go ahead, go with your case.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rahul Sagar. I am currently here on behalf of Ricky Patel. He couldn't make it because of family reasons. Currently, he's petitioning for a 720 square footage garage, and it needs a variant request of 0.4%. This should be a existing garage back at the time that he bought it, which is 800 square foot, that's what I believe. And this is this garage is extending by sorry, I want to repeat that again. The existing garage is 800 square footage, which was torn down 2018. Oh, sorry, I'm going to repeat 500 square footage. Sorry, was torn down in 2018. So that's an extra 220 square footage. There's I'm just here to represent him, and if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them as best of my ability.
Okay.
And I'm sorry for stammering.
Ms. Ukin.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to know this, and it's a very small ask by the petitioner, but I'm just wondering what the 26 square feet is for, why the owner couldn't have made it exactly.
So, I mean, his lot size, the width size is 42 feet. So if you build just, he wants to make maximum use of his lot. And he is, well off the fence lines, and so it's just better use of his, space. That's the reason that he's mentioned that to me before, that it just makes it like more space, and it does not affect any of the neighbors, the fence line, or any nature or tree or anything like that. But it's just proper use of your lot rather than having a and his lot is kind of like a diagonal, if you like, there, so it's more symmetrical too, but it just makes more sense to make proper use of the lot.
Okay.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it's a kit garage as well, and they only come in certain sizes. And based on my conversation with the petitioner at the time, I did suggest that if he had built it a teensy bit smaller, that he wouldn't need a variance request. And much of the conversation surfaced around the preset sizes of buying a kit garage. garage, for whatever that's worth to the board. But that was
That
my
makes
conversation
sense.
with the board, with the petitioner.
And makes sense with it saying Menards Design and Buy Garage.
That's what I want to show.
That is what it is.
All right.
Seriously.
Other questions? All right. If there's no other questions for the petitioner, thank you. We'll open this up to public comment. Anyone here to comment on this case? Going once, twice, 3 times? All right, seeing none, we'll pull back to this side. Mr. Gavin, you had your hand up first.
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second? I think I saw Mr. George beat you, Mr. Moore. All right, go ahead, Mr. Gavin.
It's a very minimal ask. I think, honestly, it's unusual for a lot coverage issue to think about the shape of the lot, but if this lot were just a little differently shaped, it would actually be just fine if we had just a little bit more, if it wasn't that weird angle. So I see the practical difficulty there. The one comment we got was in favor. I don't see that it's gonna, do any injustice to the neighbors. It will certainly do substantial justice to the property owner. He didn't create the shape of his lot, and he didn't, I think it unreasonably prevents him from using the property for a permitted purpose.
All right, Ms. George, anything to add?
Nothing terribly material other than he's still in compliance with the 800 square foot, allowable size of a garage, so.
All right. Other comments? All right. We're a talkative bunch, huh? All right. Seeing no other comments, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Congratulations, sir. You may tell the petitioner the variance has been granted.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, other business. Mr. Murphy, anything?
No other business.
All right, then we will move on to general public comment. Is there anyone here for general public comment? Going once, twice. All right. Then who's got the mystery motion? Mr. Reddy.
I'll second.
What's your motion, sir?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, there you go.
All right.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. All right. Awesome. Have a great Easter.
Yes.